In the Tennessee mountains, they still tell the story about the 8-year-old girl who faced down death with nothing but faith, about the 3 words that turned a killer into a guardian, about the day God spoke through a child's whisper and a wild beast bowed its head in reverence. Sarah Mae Whitfield was 8 years old when she saved Millerville, not with a gun, not with a phone call for help, but with 3 words rooted in biblical truth, whispered to a 600-pound black bear that had wandered down from Copper Ridge with hunger in its eyes and death on its breath. What you're about to discover in this faith-inspired story time will challenge everything you believe about courage, divine protection, and the power of God's truth spoken through a child's heart. The autumn of 1974 had been brutal in the Tennessee mountains. Early frost killed the berry crops, drought dried up the streams, and when winter came early, every creature for 50 miles was desperate, including the bears. But nobody in Millerville expected what happened on October 13th, the day a little girl's faith would prove stronger than any weapon man could devise. Sarah Mae was the kind of child adults barely noticed, small for her age, spoke in whispers, spent most days reading her grandmother's worn Bible on the front porch swing, while other kids played kickball in the dusty street. Her daddy worked double shifts at the lumber mill. Her mama took in sewing to make ends meet. And Sarah Mae, she watched, she listened, she prayed, but she had no idea that God was preparing her for the moment that would define not just her life, but the survival of everyone she loved. That morning started like any other. Mist rolling off the mountains, coffee brewing in kitchen, windows, old men gathering at Henderson's general store to solve the world's problems over checkers and Shaw tobacco. Henderson's wasn't just a store. It was Millerville's lifeline. Every can of beans, every bag of flour, every jar of preserves that would carry 37 families through the approaching winter, all stored in that weathered building with the sagging porch and the creaky screen door. What nobody knew was that for 100 yards up the mountain, something was watching, waiting, getting ready to test every ounce of faith this small town possessed. Sarah Mae was helping her grandmother hang laundry when she felt it first. Not a sound, a stirring in her spirit. Like the Holy Ghost whispering warnings her 8-year-old heart somehow understood. She stopped mid-reach for a cloth espin and turned toward the ridge. Her grandmother, bent over the wicker basket, didn't notice, but Sarah Mae's faith-filled eyes found the shadow moving between the pine trees, black as night, big as a small car, moving with purpose toward town. If she had run inside and told the adults, 17 people would have died that day. If she had screamed, the bear would have charged. But Sarah Mae Whitfield didn't do what you'd expect. She did something that defied every instinct, every rule, every piece of common sense her parents had ever taught her. She did something that could only be explained by divine guidance. Working through a child's pure faith, the bear emerged from the tree line just as the church bell chimed 11 a.m. Some of the men were loading supplies from Henderson's into pickup trucks. Mrs. Peterson was pushing her baby carriage down Main Street. 3 boys were playing marbles in the dirt near the store steps. Nobody saw death walking toward them on 4 massive paws. Nobody except Sarah Mae. The bear was 100 yards from the store when she started walking, not running away, walking toward it. Her grandmother's voice echoed behind her, "Sarah Mae, come back here this instant." But Sarah Mae had heard something else, something quieter than her grandmother's voice, something that sounded like the still, small voice her Sunday school teacher had taught her about. Peace. 150 yards. The bear's massive head swung left and right, nostrils flaring, catching scents, identifying threats, calculating which humans posed. Danger. Sarah Mae kept walking, step by step, like she was walking to Sunday service. Calm, quiet, faithful. 100 yards. Someone spotted the bear and screamed. Chaos erupted. Mothers grabbed children. Men shouted for guns. The baby in the carriage started crying. But through it all, one small girl walking steadily forward, her faith stronger than their fear. 50 yards. The bear stopped. So did Sarah Mae. They looked at each other across the dusty street. Predator and child, wildness and innocence, hunger and trust, fear and faith. And that's when Sarah May opened her mouth and spoke the 3 words that would echo through Millerville for the next 50 years. Words so simple a child could say them. So powerful they stopped a killing machine in its tracks, so rooted in biblical truth that they carried the authority of heaven itself. But before I tell you what she said, you need to know about the secret Sarah May had been carrying, the one thing that made her different from every other 8-year-old in Tennessee, the gift that would save them all, the divine calling that had been growing in her spirit since she first learned to pray. Sarah May Whitfield had been talking to animals since she could walk, not pretend talking, real conversation. Her grandmother, Meemaw Rose, was the only one who knew. She'd caught Sarah May at age 3 sitting in the chicken coop, having what sounded like a serious discussion with old Bertha, the meanest hen in the county. "What you doing, baby girl? Bertha's sad. Her eggs aren't coming easy anymore." Meemaw Rose had laughed then, thought it was childhood imagination, until the next morning when Bertha laid 3 perfect eggs for the first time in months. That was 5 years ago. Since then, Sarah May had helped Mrs. Peterson's cat find her missing kittens, convinced the Hendersons' ornery mule to stop kicking the fence, even talked down a rabid dog that had wandered into the schoolyard one spring afternoon. But nobody called it a gift, they called it luck. The bear standing 50 yards from Henderson's general store wasn't interested in luck. Sarah May could feel the animal's confusion, its desperation. 3 cubs somewhere up the mountain, crying with hunger, every natural food source gone, instinct screaming to find calories before winter killed everything it loved. The bear wasn't evil. It was apparent. "Easy, Mama," Sarah May whispered, too quiet for the panicking humans to hear. "I see you." The bear's massive head tilted, one ear twitched forward. Behind Sarah May, men were fetching rifles from truck gun racks. Children were being dragged into buildings. Someone was calling the sheriff on Henderson's black rotary phone. But in the space between girl and bear, time moved differently. Sarah May took another step forward. The bear's lips pulled back, revealing teeth like railroad spikes. Warning. Not aggression. Warning. Sarah May understood the difference. "Your babies are hungry," she said, voice carrying across the distance like a prayer. "I know. I see them in your heart." The bear stopped snarling. That's when Deputy Johnson arrived with his shotgun. That's when everything almost went to hell. "Get back, little girl." Johnson's voice boomed across Main Street. "I got a clear shot." Sarah May didn't turn around, didn't flinch, didn't break eye contact with the bear, but she could feel the animal's energy shift, from desperate to dangerous, from parent to predator. The presence of weapons changed everything. The bear rose up on hind legs, 7 feet of muscle and fury, and fear towering over the dusty street like death itself. Johnson raised his shotgun. Women screamed. Men shouted. And Sarah May Whitfield did the impossible. She sat down, right there in the middle of Main Street, cross-legged like she was settling in for story time at the library. The bear dropped back to all fours, confused. "Put that gun down," Sarah May called over her shoulder, voice calm as Sunday morning. "Please, Mr. Johnson, put it down. Child, you don't understand. Put it down." Something in her voice made the deputy hesitate. Not the words of an 8-year-old. Something older, deeper. Authority rooted in divine truth. Johnson lowered the shotgun 6 inches. The bear's posture relaxed slightly. Sarah May smiled. "Thank you," she whispered toward the bear. "Now we can talk proper." What happened next would be debated in Millerville for decades. Some folks swore they saw the bear nod. Others claimed they heard it make sounds that weren't quite growls, more like conversation. But everyone agreed on one thing. For the next 10 minutes, that little girl and that massive bear had themselves a genuine discussion. Sarah May talking in whispers, the bear responding with huffs and head movements and gentle paw gestures, like old friends catching up. And slowly, gradually, the bear began moving. Not toward the store, not toward the people, toward the edge of town, toward the mountain trail that led up Copper Ridge. But it stopped every few steps, looked back at Sarah May. Waiting, she stood up, dusted off her blue cotton dress, and started following. "Sarah May, no," her mother's voice cracked with terror. But Sarah May turned and smiled, the kind of smile that could stop worry in its tracks. "It's okay, Mama. She's taking me to meet her babies. I'll be back before supper." And without another word, an 8-year-old girl disappeared into the Tennessee mountains with a 600-pound black bear. The search party found them 4 hours later. Sarah May was sitting in a mountain clearing, surrounded by 3 bear cubs the size of Cocker Spaniels. The mother bear was nowhere to be seen. "Where'd she go?" asked Deputy Johnson, rifle ready despite himself. "Home," Sarah May said simply. "Found what she needed." "What's that?" Sarah May pointed to the cubs, who were contentedly munching on something. "Wild honey," dripping from a fallen tree that Sarah May had somehow known was there. But that's not the mystery that kept Millerville talking. It was what Sarah May said when they asked her the question everyone was thinking. "How do you know she wouldn't hurt you?" Sarah May looked up with eyes too old for her face. "Same way she knew I wouldn't hurt her babies." The real miracle happened 6 months later. Spring came early to the Tennessee mountains in 1975. Bears emerged from hibernation healthy and strong, including a certain mother with 3 grown cubs. She showed up in Millerville again on the first warm day of March. Not hungry this time, not desperate, just visiting. The bear walked straight down Main Street, past Henderson's store, past the church, straight to Sarah May's front porch where the girl sat reading her Bible. The 2 of them spent an hour together, bear sitting patient as a dog, girl scratching behind massive ears like it was the most natural thing in the world. When the bear finally left, she dropped something at Sarah May's feet, a river stone, smooth and black, shaped like a heart. Sarah May kept that stone for 73 years. Through marriage and children and grandchildren, through the death of her parents and the loss of her husband, through moments when she doubted her gift, wondered if she'd imagined it all. The stone reminded her some conversations happen in languages deeper than words. The test of Sarah May's gift came 28 years later, October 1992, another harsh autumn, another early winter threatening the mountains. But this time, it wasn't bears that brought danger to Millerville. It was men, 3 of them specifically, escaped convicts from the state prison 2 counties over, armed and desperate and running out of places to hide. They chose wrong when they chose Millerville. By then, Sarah May Whitfield had become Sarah May Patterson, married to David Patterson, the kindest man in Tennessee, mother to 4 children, grandmother to 6 more. She still lived in the same house, still sat on the same porch, still talked to animals when no one was watching. But at 36, she'd learned to keep her gift quiet. The world didn't understand, didn't want to understand, until the day understanding meant the difference between life and death. The convicts arrived on a Tuesday morning, driving a stolen pickup truck down Main Street like they owned the town they'd heard about, Millerville, from other criminals, isolated, trusting, easy prey. What they hadn't heard about was Sarah May. The men went straight to Henderson's store, now run by Billy Henderson, grandson of the original owner, demanded money from the register, food from the shelves, keys to the fastest car in town. Billy complied, hands shaking but voice steady. "Take whatever you need. Just don't hurt anybody." The leader, a scarred man named Crank who'd killed 2 guards during the escape, laughed. "Can't promise that, old man. Depends on how cooperative your neighbors are." That's when they made their fatal mistake. They decided to take hostages, starting with the children walking home from school. Sarah May was hanging laundry when she heard her youngest, Emma, scream from the road. She dropped the wet sheet and ran, arriving at Main Street just as Crank was dragging 6-year-old Emma toward the truck. "Let her go." Sarah May's voice carried across the distance, quiet but absolute. Crank turned, still gripping Emma's arm. "Lady, you got about 3 seconds to get back in that house before." He stopped mid-sentence. Something about the way Sarah May was looking at him, not afraid, not angry. Seeing like she was reading something written behind his eyes, I said, "Let her go." Crank's two partners shifted nervously. They'd seen their leader intimidate judges, guards, hardened inmates. Never saw anyone look at him like this small woman in the faded blue dress, like she knew him, like she wasn't impressed. "You're hurt," Sarah May said. taking a step closer. Not your body. Deeper. Crank's grip on Emma loosened slightly. What are you talking about? Lady Little Boy in Memphis. Mama's boyfriend with the belt. Closet with no windows. Crank's face went white. Sarah May took another step. You don't want to hurt children. You want to protect them. Like nobody protected you. Shut up. Crank's voice cracked, but he released Emma's arm. The 6-year-old ran to her mother, who knelt and gathered her close, never breaking eye contact with the armed killer 10 feet away. You can take whatever you need, Sarah May continued, voice gentle as morning rain. Food, money, the truck. But leave the children out of it. Crank's partners were getting antsy. Come on, man. Let's just take what we came for and go. But Crank couldn't move, couldn't look away from this woman who somehow knew his deepest secrets. How he whispered, same way I know you haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time since you killed those guards. Same way I know you wake up seeing their faces. Crank's hands started shaking. Same way I know you're not evil, just broken. That's when everything changed. Not because Sarah May talked him out of violence, but because her gift worked both ways. She could speak to animals, and broken men were just another kind of wounded creature. For the next hour, Sarah May Patterson sat on the steps of Henderson's store with 3 escaped convicts. Talking like a counselor instead of a hostage, she listened to Crank's story, his partner's stories, the pain that had twisted them into predators. She didn't excuse their crimes. She didn't minimize their choices, but she saw their humanity, and somehow that changed everything. When the state police finally surrounded Millerville, they found 3 armed convicts sitting peacefully on the store steps, weapons laid aside, hands empty, surrendering. What did you do? The lead trooper asked Sarah May. She looked at the 3 men being loaded into patrol cars. Crank caught her eye through the rear window, nodded once. Respect. Same thing I've always done. Sarah May answered, listened. The story of Sarah May. And the convicts spread through Tennessee like wildfire. Not the whole story. People focused on the dramatic parts. Armed criminals, tense standoff, miraculous peaceful resolution. But they missed the real miracle. The way Sarah May saw past the surface to the wounded souls underneath. The way she spoke their language. The way she treated everyone, bear or convict, scared animal or broken human, with the same gentle respect rooted in biblical truth. That was her gift. Not some mystical power to communicate with animals. The ability to recognize that every living creature, no matter how dangerous or wounded, was fighting battles others couldn't see. Sarah May Patterson lived to be 81 years old. She delivered 347 babies as the town's unofficial midwife. She talked down 14 suicide attempts. She mediated countless family feuds. She saved Henderson's store from bankruptcy twice. And every October 13th, she sat on her front porch from dawn to dusk, holding a smooth black stone shaped like a heart, waiting. The bear never came back, but other animals did. Wounded deer, lost dogs, sick cattle, injured hawks. Word spread through the animal kingdom the way it had spread through the human one. There was a woman in Millerville who understood. Sarah May's funeral in March 2019 was unlike anything Tennessee had ever seen. The church overflowed. People stood in the yard, along the road, up the hillside. Not just locals. Former convicts who'd turned their lives around after meeting her. State troopers who'd witnessed miracles they couldn't explain. Veterinarians who'd heard impossible stories. And at the very back of the cemetery, just inside the tree line, a massive black bear stood silent during the service. No one mentioned it in the obituary. But 17 people saw it, including Sarah May's granddaughter, Emma, the same Emma who'd been grabbed by Crank 27 years earlier. Emma, now 33 and mother to 3 children of her own. Emma, who'd inherited more than her grandmother's house. After the service, Emma found something left on Sarah May's headstone, another river stone, smooth and black, shaped like a heart. Still warm. The gift continues. Not the way most people think about gifts. Not supernatural power or magical ability. Simply this, the willingness to see every creature as worthy of understanding. To speak gently to the wounded. To offer peace instead of fear. To believe that even the most broken souls carry light somewhere deep inside. Sarah May Whitfield Patterson never wrote a book about her experiences, never gave interviews or traveled the lecture circuit, never sought fame or recognition for her extraordinary life. She simply lived it, one conversation at a time, one moment of understanding at a time, one act of faith-filled courage at a time. In a world that seems increasingly divided, increasingly afraid, increasingly quick to see enemies instead of wounded souls, Sarah May's story reminds us of something profound. The most powerful weapon is often the gentlest word. The greatest courage is often the quietest voice. The deepest strength is often the willingness to see past the surface. To the scared child underneath. Sarah May spent 73 years proving that understanding rooted in biblical truth is more powerful than force, that listening with divine love is more effective than shouting, that faith, real faith, the kind that sees truth and offers grace, can tame even the wildest beasts. Both the ones with fur and the ones with broken hearts. Today, when Emma Patterson sits on the same front porch where her grandmother once read her Bible, she sometimes hears rustling in the forest. Sometimes catches glimpses of movement in the shadows, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, she swears she can hear her grandmother's voice whispering the three words that saved Millerville, I see you. Three words that recognize the bear's pain. Three words that acknowledge the convict's humanity. Three words rooted in the biblical truth that every soul matters to God. Three words that changed everything. Because sometimes the most radical act is simply seeing others as they truly are, not as threats or enemies or problems to be solved, but as fellow travelers, carrying burdens we can't imagine, fighting battles we can't see, deserving of the same grace we hope to receive when our own masks slip and our own wounds show. Sarah May Whitfield Patterson saw everyone, and in seeing them, she saved them. Both the wild ones and the broken ones, and the scared ones who didn't even know they needed saving. Her story isn't finished. It continues every time someone chooses understanding over fear, every time someone offers gentleness instead of force, every time someone looks past the surface and whispers those three transformative words, I see you. The black stone sits on Emma's mantle now, smooth and warm and shaped like a heart, a reminder that some gifts are meant to be passed down. Some conversations transcend species. Some courage speaks so quietly the whole world stops to listen. And some small-town women with gentle voices carry the power to change everything. Question for our still standing family. Who taught you that faith conquers fear? The person who showed you that God's truth speaks through small voices. Sarah May's grandmother read her the Bible every day, teaching her that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind. Tag the person who built your biblical foundation. Let's honor the faith teachers. Thanks for spending time with us today. If this story meant something to you, pass it on. This is Still Standing Souls. Real stories, quiet strength, lasting hope.